Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage on March 1st, 2023. A beautiful sunny day headed for around 40 degrees, but the last 24 hours it snowed nonstop. It never really snowed that hard, but it never stopped snowing. So I had to plow the driveway 3 times. Once after lunch yesterday, because I knew a friend of mine was dropping off this turbo and a toolbox. That was exciting. Once around 9 o'clock last night, because I didn't want to wake up to a mess and not be able to get out to take my son down to the bus stop and everything. So I went ahead and did that, and I knew the plow truck for the town would be back by, but the way I plow my driveway, I plow downstream. I got a video about that. So I don't get much fill in when he goes back by. So woke up this morning, sun's out, and we're melting once again. My driveway's turning black. So, I mean, it's March. It's not going to last. At least sometimes when you get hammered with snow right around Thanksgiving, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, it seems like winter lasts forever. We had a pretty light winter going until the last, well, we had some snow and then it pretty much melted, and then this week, March is, what do they say, in like a lion, out like a lamb? I think she's coming in like a lion. So that's that. So what are we looking at here? Well, my original plan for the Race 55 Chevy was to run twin genuine BorgWarner S366 turbos. I bought those right around Christmas. I had built a 6-liter with twin BorgWarner S366s that I was talked into selling with the Gray Nova when I sold it. And I was okay with that. I made pretty decent money on it, and I would just build a better motor. So that's what I'm up against. I recently picked up an aluminum 6.2 block, and my plan was to run a stock bottom end deal, stock rods and pistons. I've since changed my mind. I don't see the genius in trying to do that. I mean, I'm going to have an engine diaper and probably a belly pan, but why tempt fate if you're, especially put something like this on it? Even the twin S366s can make 1,500 horsepower, no problem. So I've decided to buy a forged rotating assembly, already balanced, trying to avoid getting hung up at a machine shop, other than potentially having the block match to the whatever pistons I end up with. So that's down the road. It's, a forged rotating assembly balanced is like $2,500, but probably a lot cheaper than crashing the car and potentially getting hurt. So it just seemed silly. I have lots of stock stuff. I can build some actually dedicated street stuff that I wouldn't take to the track and have fun with it, because I have a lot of LS Gen 4 rods and some engine parts that you could build some fun street stuff with. But if I'm actually gonna race it at all, it just doesn't make sense to, cut yourself short. So that's the plan. The beauty of the twin turbos, especially when I street drive the Race 55, is they should, almost instantly make boost, be really responsive because of their size. The bigger the turbo, the lazier it gets, in theory. There's a lot of factors that go into that, but I'm doing some gross generalizations. So with the twins, I like the packaging better, and I had already bought I'm not super happy with it, but a intercooler that's, 2 inlets, 1 outlet. So probably that's the combination I'm going to start with. I was not expecting to buy a big giant turbo. But fortunately or unfortunately, I'm one of the first phone calls for a lot of people when they want to sell something. And a friend of mine had bought this turbo new. I am not a fan of imported turbos, but I have to admit, they're pretty much legit these days. Everybody's running them seemingly successfully. So this is a VS Racing 98 113 GT55 based. It's huge. Got a hole in my glove. And it also smells like race gas, which I don't know if you had alcohol or race gas, probably alcohol, but he made at 27 pounds on his dyno. He has a dyno in his shop. He made 1,400 wheel horsepower at 27 pounds. So that's pretty stout, but I do know he had some trouble spooling this with his combination. I don't know. There's a lot of factors that go into it. I ended up fixing his transmission, which potentially will cure that. We'll see when he gets it back out this year, but he ran across a Garrett or Precision version of this, which is like a $6,000 or $7,000 turbo, where this one brand new, I just talked to VS Racing yesterday, is $1,800. A bargain when you compare to the name brands. Are they on par? No, it does have the billet wheel with their 7+7 vanes, they say. It doesn't have the billet center. He bought it new, ran it on his dyno, and made a couple passes in the car, but again, he was having transmission problems, so he called. I bought it. Here it sits. What I will do with it, I'm not sure. So initially, I believe I'm going to go my aluminum 6.2 twin turbo LS deal. But the problem with the LS, I mean, they're a great motor for lots of reasons. What they lack is enough cylinder head bolts to keep the head gaskets in it when you start putting boost to it. So you have to be really careful not to overboost that. You can bore the cylinder head bolt holes and go to 1/2-inch studs, copper gasket, top fuel hoop rings. There's lots of things you can do to try to keep the boost in the engine, but an aftermarket LS block has extra cylinder head bolts, just for that reason. The small and big block Chevy have more bolts per cylinder than the LS does. Now, where the LS does shine is a small and big block Chevy, the valve angle, I believe, is 23 degrees. So if you're looking at the deck surface of the block, the valve's laid over 23 degrees, and geniuses, the engine people, have determined the more you stand the valve up, the more horsepower you can make. So the LS, General Motors went right to 15 degrees from 23 on the traditional engines, and that is one of the reasons why they don't need as much ignition time, and they make a ton of power. The cylinder heads breathe really well. There's lots of good reasons. A valve train is on a shaft, so you don't hear a lot of people having valve train problems when they street drive like you do with a small block to a point, and big block Chevys with their canted valve arrangement. Typically with a big block Chevy, you have a giant camshaft as well. It's not uncommon, like if you try to street drive, like if I had ever tried to street drive my orange Camaro with my 820-inch lift camshaft, I'd probably eat a lot of, I ate valve springs anyway, but probably lifters or roller rockers would eventually give up. And I had shaft rockers in that, but it's a concern. The LS, you can run a hydraulic roller and make a ton of power, spin a lot of RPM as long as you set the valve train up right the first time. You don't have to adjust it. They're just a cool motor. They make a lot of power. A lot of people, hate on them for wrong reasons, but the people that understand engines see the genius in it. And again, the aftermarket blocks and stuff, they have given them some extra cylinder head bolts and really makes them quite the platform to make a lot of power. So the only reason I bought this is it was a wicked deal. And before I bought it, a buddy of mine, he just offered me a Garrett 4.5-inch intercooler core. Let me get that. This thing's a monster as well. You have to build your own end caps, which is actually probably easier in the long run than trying to take an intercooler that you bought that it already has, holes welded in it, and then trying to make everything else fit it. In this case, you can just do your own thing. So this turbo with this intercooler would be an excellent combination. I don't know if I'll put it on any version of LS motor that I have, but if I built a, I wouldn't say mild big block Chevy, let's say I built a 540 with a reasonable camshaft in it, and maybe even smaller, maybe only around 500 cubic inches with one turbo, that'd probably be a fun package. again, this stuff was cheap at the moment, ridiculously cheap when you compare what it would actually cost to buy it. And I'll box it up for now and put it with all the other stuff. Now, is this a smart way to buy speed parts? No, but I do this a lot. I'm opportunistic. If good stuff comes up for reasonable money, I hoard it like a squirrel getting ready for winter. Another opportunity presented itself right around lunchtime yesterday. I was thinking I need a small toolbox right in this area for my transmission tools. I've been balancing them on a little cart. I don't know if you can see it. They occupy the corner of the bench over here. They're over there. Last summer I bought a Harbor Freight roll-away toolbox. I thought I could put all my specialty tools in it, rear end, engine and stuff, and the transmission tools didn't fit. So, and it's on the other end of the shop. So my thought process was to pick up something like this. And a buddy of mine started a job recently, and he started with this, filled it with tools, and then the Snap-on truck showed up, and he ended up buying a big toolbox. So just in conversation at lunchtime, he says, "Hey, you need a roll-around cart?" Yep. So here it is. I would never pick this color in a million years. But now that it's here, I kind of like it. He already started customizing it with decals, and I'll continue to do that. But after I finish this video, my next project is to place all my transmission tools in here and find a place for it to live right around here where it's not in the way like everything else. And I think that's progress. I hope. At least they'll all be in one spot. He happens to work with the guy that was bringing the turbo, so that's why the toolbox showed up at the same time. My buddy with the turbo had the key to this in his pocket, and we got talking about everything under the sun, and he drove away. I dragged the toolbox inside, covered in snow, went to open it, and I didn't have the key. So now I have the key. I've got it opened up, and I tried every barrel key that I had, but none of them fit. And today, it's nice and clean, really. It's only a few months old, so I'll fill it up. Also on the agenda today is I want to strip this Cadillac Turbo 400 and get that stripped out because I'm putting a Chevy case on it with the crazy long tail housing and building a nice street tranny for the guys. So the weather looks like it might cooperate in a couple days, and I will get the bell housing cut off the other transmission, get that assembled. I need my bench back so I can get back to fabricating. You know, transmission work is always here, and if I'm going to do anything else, I got to work around it. But once they get spread out on the bench, I like to just get them back together if I'm not interrupted by snowstorms and making questionable purchases. So that's my Wednesday so far. I should probably get to work, and I'll catch you in a couple days. Take care. After 24 hours of snow, we have a winter wonderland once again. But today is beautiful and sunny. Almost 40 degrees already. That was yesterday's snowfall. Now housing my iced tea. Makes it nice and frosty. You can't do that in Florida.